Well, I'm working, I'm studying. It's true that preparation tasks are not going um, as well as I want. However, I'm doing my best because I don't know, it has become a little bit challenging to adapt to new environment or new work ethic. And all right, we turn to our friend GPT to do our today's preparation. I think I had better do one speaking practice because if you don't do your daily tasks, mostly uh, you end up doing nothing. You couldn't manage doing tasks on time. 32 days left. Where were our preparation? Preparation. What? Why is it speaking Uzbek? If I forgot, where did I? Mm, all right, all right. Yeah, session time limits, song identification, call conversation reminder. Um, I remember talking with it about like where was my, yeah, it helped me to make a plan if you remember. Um, um, all right, so it takes too much time. As you can see, it's maybe because of my unorganized behavior, or is it somehow challenging to find? Okay, let's. It was else preparation, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, or is it the chat that we talked about my preparation plan, or it's another one?
It's understandable to feel a bit scattered. From what I recall, we did talk about your IELTS preparation plan earlier. If you need to revisit or clarify any part of it, I'm here to help you find your footing again.
Yes, we made a plan for. If I'm not mistaken, we made a weekly and monthly plan. Can show me it again?
I'm afraid I don't have the exact plan we made earlier, but if you'd like, we can recap the key steps you were working on. For example, if we had weekly tasks like practicing writing essays or doing mock speaking tests, we could outline that again. Just let me know what part you want to focus on, and we'll piece it back together.
I just, yeah, I need preparation. Can we have IELTS speaking test together?
Of course, I'd be happy to help you with an IELTS speaking practice. We can simulate a test scenario. Just let me know when you're ready, and I'll start with a part one question.
I'm ready. Can you ask some questions, please?
I'm ready when you are. Let's dive right in. First question. Do you prefer living in the city or the countryside, and why?
Well, it depends. It depends on my job, I think. If it's possible to find sustainable job, I would prefer living in countryside as it has better environment and you'll have more opportunity to connect with the nature. Furthermore, it's less crowded. As an introvert person, I don't much enjoy kind of being around, being surrounded by a lot of people.
That's a thoughtful answer. You gave clear reasons. Just a small tweak. Instead of as a introvert person, you'd say as an introvert. Keep this natural flow going, and let's move on to another question when you're ready.
Go on. Go on, you can ask that the other question.
All right, let's dive into another. Can you tell me about a hobby you have and why you enjoy it?
Well, honestly, I don't have many hobbies. However, I really enjoy playing video games with my friends. And the video game is called Warcraft, and I don't think many people know about this game. However, as it's somehow the waste of time, I always try to restrict myself. And honestly, I am really committed to give up this.
That's an honest reflection. You communicated your enjoyment and also your self awareness about balance. You might just refine one small phrase when you said it's somehow a waste of time. You could say it can feel like a waste of time. But overall, you expressed it well. Let me know if you'd like to continue with more questions or wrap up.
Yes, yes, come on. Another question.
All right, let's go for another. Describe a time when you had to solve a problem. What was the problem and how did you handle it?
All right. I think our life is actually it's somehow the combination of problems. We cannot live without problems. So, as an ordinary person, I also have several problems on a daily basis. But if I had to tell the case that if I have to tell the case that I have to solve, I don't know, challenging problem or more important problem, it might be preparation for my university exams. Around 10 years ago, I was an applicant and I wanted to get into one of the prestigious universities of our country. It's called UWED, University of World Economy and Diplomacy. However, entrance rates were very high and there was a lot of competition for this university. And so at the time, I had to deal with three main subjects. that our tests are given from them, and I managed to actually study all of them. I just had a special plan for studying. I divided my week into three categories. Um, I mostly focused on one subject in a particular day, giving a limited time for revision of the other two. So by doing so, I was able to get accepted into this university.
That was a great response. You explained the problem, detailed your method, and shared the outcome. Just watch out for small phrasing refinements. Instead of our tests are given from them, you could say our tests covered them. But overall, you gave a clear and structured answer. Keep it up.
Right? Parts three questions.
Sure. Part two of the IELTS speaking test is where you'll speak on a topic for about 1 to 2
No, no, I
minutes.
think the question that you give me is the part two question. It's time to move to the part three question.
Ah, I see. Let's dive into part three then. These are more abstract. So, in your opinion, how important is it for people to learn problem solving skills at an early age?
I think it's absolutely important because problem solving skills is the essence of our life. To have a better life, to have a better future, we must constantly deal with different kind of issues. Failing them may cause a lot of trouble, and so juggling with them requires long term and well taught education, I guess. So, if we start our children to be more flexible and more resilient in terms of problem solving, I think we can guarantee better future for them.
You gave a well thought out answer. You connected problem solving to lifelong success. Just a minor note when you said failing them may cause trouble. You could say failing to address them may cause trouble. But overall, your reasoning was clear and logical. Nicely done.
Okay, another positive question.
All right, here's another part three question. How do you think technology is changing the way people solve problems today?
Well, it's a really interesting question because technology is a double-edged sword. At the same time, it's enhancing our problem-solving abilities and it's undermining it too, or undermining them too, I mean. Why and how? In terms of its benefits, it really helps us to get better options, better alternatives. And then with the help of AI tools, for example, we can see how the problems are in the affecting our life or how they come from. We can know much about them, a lot of details, and even AI can teach us how to solve them with different approaches. So here, technology is working as an assistant for us. It's something our ancestors lacked, and so their development was, I think, slower than us. However, we have such a great tool that we can advance much more faster. I mean, much faster. However, at the same time, technology is making as lazy, meaning that instead of pondering about our problems, mostly we are just relying on and um, we are delegating it to the AI completely without our own effort. As a result, our disabilities may rust, they deteriorate, and over time, we may not be able to kind of solve any kind of problems at all. Uh, that's my insights into the role of technology in our problem solving.
That was a well balanced response. You highlighted both the advantages and the potential drawbacks. One small refinement, instead of much more faster, just say much faster. But overall, you gave a thoughtful and clear answer. Nice job.
Right? And now the part three question.
Of course, let's keep going. In your view, what role should schools play in teaching young people how to tackle real world challenges?
I think schools should be forefront of this issue because, as we know, children spend most of their time at school, and especially it is their early period of life. Yep, and mostly parents don't have enough time to work with their children, or I mean, nobody except schools have time for our young people. So schools should kind of take more responsibility. They should be more cautious about this because if they fail to address this problem to prepare students for the real life, I think our society can have a lot of problems because we cannot actually exclude these people. Yeah, they always stay in the society if they cannot kind of solve their uh, challenges in life, meaning that we can suffer from indirect results of it. So the prosperity and the overall well-being of society depends on the life of individual people. Yep. If in the someone, if a person lives happily and if person has everything they want, it can reflect on whole society too. The whole society develops, whole society thrive, thrives. So as we know, mostly for example, adulthood is determined by the actions or by the education and upbringing we get in our childhood. And the most of our childhood is spent at school, meaning that schools define as prosperity and development of a community or a country.
You offered a strong perspective. You connected education to societal well-being clearly. Just a small note. When you said nobody except schools have time, you might say schools play the biggest role for a smoother nuance. Overall, though, your answer was well developed. Nicely done.
And all right, so what I need is approximate score for each part of the our test. First, you give me approximate score, and then I'll ask other assistants.
For an approximate impression. In part one, you were clear and direct, likely around a 6.5 to 7. In part two, you gave detailed examples but had a bit of repetition, so around a 6.5. In part three, your ideas were well developed, probably about a 7. Overall, you're in that upper 6 to 7 range. Strong fluency. Just polish a few structures.
All right. You know why? I know that I could speak better, but somehow I am struggling generating ideas, and somehow my ideas are scattered, and I can concentrate on the questions, and I'm losing the thread while I'm talking about a topic. How can I deal with this problem? Because I know that I know a lot of advanced words, and I know, for example, a lot of high-level grammar structures. But why can't I use them while I'm speaking? It's holding me back from expressing my thoughts freely and clearly. And there's some kind of tension while I'm speaking in English. Partly I know why. It's because I don't speak in English a lot. Yep, if I talk about the proportion of um, it during the day, it might be 10% if I force myself. Okay, let's say 20%. Some days, as I have IELTS group. So what do you think?
It's completely normal to feel that way when you're not immersed in the language all day. What often helps is practicing organizing your thoughts with simple mental outlines, like first, then finally. Also, get comfortable with short pauses. Silence feels bigger to you than your listener. Finally, as you practice, try low stakes situations, voice memoing your thoughts or summarizing your day in English. It's about building that habit so your ideas have a natural path out.
All right. What would be the fastest and the most optimal way of kind of jumping from this score to the highest possible score? Yesterday, for example, I discussed about my writing. I think you, ChatGPT, offered me, or Claude, or it was another AI, but I'm not sure. But it advised the fastest way of improving my score. It said that, or it wrote that actually, firstly doing practice, then getting feedback. Mhm. Doing this type of practice can help me to get my score 10 times faster than just doing practice daily.
That's solid advice. The key difference is the feedback loop. When you practice with targeted feedback, whether it's speaking or writing, you pinpoint exactly what's holding you back. Then, when you redo it with those corrections in mind, you're not just repeating mistakes, you're refining. So, yes, if you want to jump quickly, practice often, but make sure you're getting short, specific feedback in between, and then apply it right away.
All right, so now, for example, we had for example, masters now. You asked me some questions. So right now, should I get your feedback, and after that, I should learn from them, and I should memorize, and I should, repractice it?
You've got the right idea, but no need to memorize. Instead, think of it as absorbing the feedback pattern. So now I'd give you specific feedback, like maybe on organization, vocabulary use, or fluency. Then, when you practice again, you don't memorize exact answers, you apply the lessons. For example, if the feedback is stay on topic, next time you consciously practice a more structured response. It's all about active application, not memorization.
However, when I'm talking about a topic, mostly I cannot find a precise collocation to express my thoughts, or it's a bit, um, how to say, how to call. What's the adjective of the describing the moment that requires a lot of effort? Demanding, yeah? Sometimes it's demanding, too much demanding to kind of make sentence for me.
It can definitely feel demanding. The key is giving yourself permission to pause for a second and simplify. If the perfect collocation doesn't come, use a straightforward phrase instead. Over time, the more you expose yourself to natural English, like reading and listening, those collocations will come more naturally. But in the moment, it's okay to stay simple, then build from there.
What if I don't have much time and my time is limited?
If time is tight, prioritize short, high impact practice. Focus on one area at a time, like just organizing answers. Also, get quick feedback. Record yourself, listen back, and notice one thing to improve. Even 10 focus minutes a day beats scattered hours. And remember, progress doesn't come from huge chunks, it's the consistent focus steps that add up.
It's consistent for steps that add up. Okay, for example, when I speak, I want to speak like you. Yeah, at least the people who speak, I don't know, on the media, they, that they can clearly phrase words and phrases. It's not just they're not just understandable, but also it's really nice and pleasant to listen to them. For example, I'm really fond of speakers like um, the Mehdi Hassan, if you know him, or Alex Hormozy, or let me think, who was this person? Some podcasters, for example, when they speak, they articulate everything so clearly and precisely, you don't understand what they mean. They use such a nice words that really want to use them. How can I how can I achieve this level? Even some politicians can do it. I see some. Yeah, what I mean that English is not their first language. English maybe their second or third language. But when they talk, when they can make a speech, they speak almost flawlessly, and the words are phrased precisely.
Achieving that level is definitely possible. Those speakers you admire practice a lot, but here's how you get closer. First, listen intentionally, pick apart how they structure ideas. Then practice summarizing those ideas in your own words. Over time, you'll build a mental library of those clear phrases. And keep speaking. Record yourself, adjust, and repeat. Bit by bit, that precision becomes second nature.
Um, I didn't get you completely. What you said that I have to how pick apart how they structure ideas. You mean that I should learn the way of their and the idea structure, how they organize their thoughts. But sometimes it's not only about thoughts, it's about vocabulary also. All right, maybe it's about thoughts. I haven't thought about it. Can you help me? Is there any strategies or techniques that help us to organize thoughts? Firstly, let's do brainstorming. Don't give me just one way of doing it. Can you tell me, let's say, 4 or 5 ways of organizing thoughts that's really popular and practical around the world?
Sure. First, try a simple beginning, middle, end structure. Start with context, then elaborate, then conclude. Second, use a problem solution results approach. Present an issue, suggest a fix, and state the outcome. Third, try past, present, future. Explain the history, current state, and what's next. Fourth, use compare and contrast. Discuss two ideas and how they differ. Finally, try list and elaborate. Give 2 or 3 key points, then explain each. Practicing these patterns builds clarity.
And please, I need the examples of using each structure, but use please simpler words, simpler structures that can be applied by not uh, only by me, but also other low-level students too.
Of course, let's simplify. For beginning, middle, end, first introduce your topic. Next, explain your main point. Finally, conclude with a simple summary. For problem solution result.
No, 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 no. All right, all right, all right. Firstly, just take the first approach, begin, middle, end. Show me real life examples, the giving thoughts in a real life situation.
Sure, imagine someone asks you about your weekend. You'd start with the beginning. On Saturday morning, I went hiking. Then the middle. In the afternoon, I had a picnic with friends. And the end. Overall, it was a relaxing day in nature. Simple and structured.
What about its some complex ideas, like IELTS Part 3 questions?
No problem. Let's say you're asked about how technology affects communication. Beginning. In the past, people relied on letters or face to face talks. Middle. Now we use instant messaging and video calls. End. Overall, technology makes it faster, but sometimes less personal. Simple structure, even for deeper topics.
In the past, people relied on letters or face-to-face talks. Now we use messaging and video calls. Overall, technology makes it faster, but sometimes less personal. All right, do the same with the other approach too.
Certainly, let's use the problem solution result approach. For example, the problem. Many people struggle to find time to exercise. The solution. A simple solution is short daily workouts. The result? This helps people stay healthy, even with busy schedules. Simple and practical.
All right, so many people struggle to find time to exercise. A simple solution is shorter daily workouts. This helps people to stay healthy, even busy schedules. All right, the other approach.
Let's do past, present, future. The past. In the past, people used paper maps to navigate. The present. Today, we use GPS on our phones. The future. In the future, we might have self driving cars doing it all for us. Simple and clear.
And next,
Let's use compare and contrast. For example, books give you detailed information, while videos show things visually. Then conclude both can be useful, depending on how you like to learn. Simple and balanced.
So, what do you think which can be the best to answer IELTS questions?
The best answer is the one that fits the question naturally. If you're explaining change over time, past, present, future works great. If they ask for solutions, problem, solution, result is perfect. The key is to listen to what's being asked and then pick the structure that helps you. Answer directly, clearly, and with a natural flow.
Yeah, let's drill this approach. Firstly, you ask me a couple of questions, and I try to use the first structure, begin, middle, and end approach. Firstly, ask part one question of IELTS exam, all right?
All right, let's give it a go. Here's a part one question. What do you usually do on weekends? Try it with the begin, middle, and end structure.
Well, in the past, I used it to go out with my friends, enjoying my nights. However, now, as a married person, I spend most of my time with my wife and with my son because I think nowadays family relationships are more important than friendship. Furthermore, my friends are also married and they are also busy with their own marriage life.
Great job, you had a clear structure. You began with your past weekends, then described your current routine, and ended with why it changed. You've got the pattern. Nicely done, let's keep building on that.
What score would it get if it was in real exam?
Your answer would likely be around a 6.5 to 7. You had a clear structure and you gave relevant details. To push it higher, you could add a bit more variety in vocabulary or a slightly deeper reflection. But overall, you were right on track.
Why couldn't I get kind of higher score? Also, I used this method.
The structure is just one part of it. To boost your score even more, you'd add a wider range of vocabulary, maybe a few more complex sentence structures, and even a more personal insight. It's about layering. So once you have a solid structure, you add richness in language and thought. That you're building all the right skills.
Ask me another question.
All right, here's another type of weather and why. Remember to use the begin, middle, and end approach.
Well, in the past, I used it to love mostly warm and sunny weather. However, nowadays, I hate this type of weather because it's getting overwhelmingly hot in our country due to, for example, climate change or global warming. So nowadays, I prefer cold weather types and patterns over hot ones because in our region, actually, kind of has made me change my. That's it.
Nicely done. You showed how your preference changed over time. Past sunny, now cold. It's clear and structured. If you wanted to polish further, you could add a quick personal insight at the end, like why cold weather feels refreshing to you. but you're definitely applying the method well.
What would be the score?
This one would likely hover around the same range, about a 6.5 to 7. You had a clear progression of ideas, and you expanded a bit with climate context. To push to a hard score, you could add a richer vocabulary layer or a deeper personal reflection, but your structure is solid.
All right, ask me part three questions related to this approach.
Sure, here's a part 3 question. How do you think people's preferences for weather affect their lifestyle choices? Use the same beginning, middle, end structure.
All right, let me think. How do you think people's preference for weather affect their lifestyle choice? I think in the past it played a more important role in people's lifestyle because you mostly, okay, not you, let's say the people used to choose their living residence or their, let's say, sometimes work, and they decide where to live for the rest of their life, depending on what kind of weather they like. However, with the rise of technology, it has changed, I guess, because nowadays you can create perfect conditions in any kind of weather patterns in almost in any part of the world. Just it's a matter of your finance and the technologies that's available for you. So nowadays, I think your preference can that doesn't matter much, as it's possible to create any kind of weather pattern in any part of the world.
You did a nice job walking through the timeline. You began with the past, explained the present, and concluded with the idea that preferences matter less. This would sit around a 6.5 to 7 again. For a higher score, you could add a bit more nuance or a richer vocabulary, but your structure and clarity are solid.
Could you show me, for example, what would be the best answer using this approach for this exact question?
Certainly. Beginning. In the past, people often chose where to live based on the climate they preferred. Middle. Today, technology allows us to control indoor environments, so preferences influence holidays more than moving. And, in the future, we may care even less about weather in daily life, focusing more on experiences. This adds a bit more depth while still following the structure.
Do you think this answer can get better score than mine?
Yes, it likely would score a bit higher, closer to a solid 7 or even beyond. The reason is that it not only follows the structure, but also adds some nuanced ideas and a slightly broader vocabulary. It shows development of thought, which boosts the score.
So in the past, people often chose where to live based on the climate they preferred. Today, technology allows us to control indoor environments, so preference influence holidays more than moving. In the future, we may care even less about weather in daily life, focusing more on experience. Right, ask me another question.
Here's another part three question for you. How do you think extreme weather events might affect the way people plan for the future? Feel free to use the same structure, beginning, middle, and end.
All right, let me think. It's true that people were more cautious and worried when they plan for their future due to the unpredictable behavior of extreme weather events, natural disasters. However, nowadays, with the rise of technology, it's more likely to protect upcoming um, warnings. I mean, the extreme weather patterns. So I think people care less about such kind of events, or at least they are well prepared for them nowadays, I guess.
Nicely structured, you began with past worry, explained how technology helps today, and concluded with people being more prepared. To boost it, you could add a bit more on how they plan differently now. But overall, you're applying the method well.
Can you give me your version of answer for it?
Of course. Beginning, people often avoided settling in areas prone to extreme weather events. Middle, today with advanced forecasting and better infrastructure, people can plan around these risks and prepare. End, in the future, we might integrate these safeguards into long term plans, making extreme weather less disruptive. That version adds a touch more forward looking detail.
In the past, people often avoided settling in areas prone to extreme weather events. Today, with advanced forecasting and better infrastructure, people can plan around these risks and prepare. In the future, we might integrate these safeguards into long-term plans, making extreme weather less disruptive. All right, I think that's enough. I feel a little bit tired. I may have a lunch, so I want to end our conversation. And by the way, what I need is to I need the summary of our chat. You have to give me the new structures that I learned and the new types of vocabulary and language chunks that can be useful for my language learning. Can you do that?
Absolutely. Here's a quick recap. You learned five structures: beginning, middle, end, problem, solution, result, past, present, future, compare and contrast, and list and elaborate. We also practice simple, clear vocabulary, focusing on structuring thoughts before worrying about complex words. As for language chunks, you use patterns like in the past now, in the future, and one solution is as a result. Keep practicing these patterns, and you'll naturally gain fluency. Enjoy your lunch.
All right. If I'm not mistaken, we didn't talk about list and elaborate part. Can you give in examples and explain this approach, to please?
You're right. For list and elaborate, you start by naming two or three key points, then expand on each one. For example, if asked why people exercise, you might say, first, people exercise for health, second, for fun, and third, to meet others. Then elaborate. For health, it helps keep fit. For fun, it can be a hobby. For socializing, people join group sports. This way, you list your ideas clearly and add detail.
Thank you very much. it's working. There was something problem. Right. Importantly, I did practice. So who are preparing for IELTS, you could do the same. You can do the same because daily practice makes a huge difference in preparation. Yeah, it's not about studying kind of for 20 or I mean, 10 or 12 hours once a week. It's about daily practice. The more the better, of course. If you can study for a long time every day, I think it is the best thing that you can do.